Do you want to know what a sign is that I really enjoy a game? It's when I'm sat on the loo thinking because I left my phone in the other room and can't just watch JXE videos like I usually do when I'm doing my business. And the thought of playing the game makes me smile and successfully distracts me from the painful poo I'm usually taking. Did you need that information? I'm guessing no. But the thing to take away is that when just the thought of playing a game ignites a smile on my face regardless of the situation I am in, it must be a game I really enjoy, right? Oh balls, I just gave away the ending, didn't I? Let's see if my reset power is still working. The Stanley Parable is the story of a man named... oh, bollocks.
Step right up, ladies and germs. Come see a unique sight. Ronica is talking about a Souls-like again. Oh, what fun.
Aha, foolish purple thing. Jedi Fallen Order is more of an action game with Souls-like elements. Kind of like how Bioshock is an FPS with RPG elements, or how The Prince is an animated show with comedy elements, if you can fucking believe that. Seriously though, The Prince is one of the most boring animated shows I've ever seen. I'd almost rather have been watching Farzar on Netflix, and no, I wouldn't. So Star Wars and I have kind of a weird relationship. I was vaguely aware of it when I was a kid, with only 3 specific memories standing out. One was of playing with a toy lightsaber, specifically a green one. I think it was Obi-Wan's lightsaber. I don't know. Can't remember. No way, it can't have been. Obi-Wan's is blue. You know what? This isn't important. One was of playing with one of those yellow spaceships from the Phantom Menace. One of these things here. At time of writing the script, I don't know what they're called. I will have googled it by now and figured it out. And the final memory was of a sibling playing a video game. I think it was an N64 game, or it could have been a PlayStation game. Don't know. The system doesn't matter, really. All I remember is there's a scene in the game where a bridge collapses and it takes Jar Jar Binks with it. Unfortunately, the fall is not to his death, though. Oh, if only he did fall to his death, how happy we'd all be. You know what? This feels like a good place to stick this bit in. If you enjoy these videos and want to support the channel, then head over to patreon.com/RonicaReviews. It's only £1 a month to become a supporter. This will help me keep building the channel and keep bringing you content. And best of all, you'll get 24 hours early access to new review videos, a shout out at the end of said videos, and you'll be able to suggest games for me to cover. If you want something more tangible back for your support, then I have a T-mail shop where you can pick up some merchandise. I recently added these 2 new shirt designs, and there are plenty of other things on there for you to browse. Some other shirts, some tote bags, and even a jigsaw puzzle. Also, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe, so that way you never miss a video. Anyway, back to the review. I didn't really get into Star Wars until year 7 of secondary school, although I might have that wrong as the pile of repressed shit in my head is getting harder and harder to sift through, and each time I try I hear something hissing, so I'm kind of afraid to keep doing it. Let's stay out of my head, maybe.
I would have thought there would be plenty of space in there. That wouldn't be a problem.
One more try.
Oh, crap. No!
And I guess that sort of worked. I need to get this thing fixed.
Well. Look who came crawling back to me.
Oh hey, PS5, you've changed since the whole shooting thing.
I've grown stronger in the dark side.
Well, for what it's worth, black sure is your colour. Earlier this year, I decided to watch the Clone Wars, that animated series that looked like a PS3 cutscene. Then I watched the first season of The Bad Batch, then Rogue One, then Rebels, and I was brought back in. Well, not all the way in. More just awkwardly hovering in the doorway, but it's a start. And before anyone suggests I watched The Mandalorian, I actually have watched The Mandalorian. It's shit. Anyway, let's stop pissing about and actually talk about the video game I was here to cover today. The point I was actually trying to make before whatever the fuck that tangent was that it took me some time to get into Star Wars, and I lost my interest again a few years later. My decision to actually try Jedi Fallen Order was made for 2 main reasons. A, I couldn't find my copy of Republic Commando in my library at the time, unless it was in my Xbox library and I've been looking on the wrong console. Sounds like the sort of stupid thing I'd do. And B, it's a product of Respawn Studios, previously responsible for the absolutely amazing Titanfall 2, which is one of my favourite FPS games ever for being able to seamlessly marry first-person shooting and free-running to intense mech combat mechanics, and I really should do a review of that one day. Also, I'm fully aware that Respawn are behind Apex Legends, and that game has become a little bit too monetized for some people's liking. I completely understand that, by the way. But the point is, I appreciate them for the games that they can make. Jedi Fallen Order follows a man named Cal Kestis, a former Jedi Padawan who survived the Purge. You know, that event within the Star Wars universe which sees the Jedi Order betrayed by the clone troopers who served under them. Well, technically the Emperor's the guy who ordered the kill, and the clones didn't really have much choice. In fact, they physically couldn't disobey the order. But you know what? Not important. Well, it is important, but it's not important for this review. Well, it kind of is. Shut up. In this opening level, we get introduced to the movement mechanics, and all I can say is, what's with the weird delay? Seriously, there feels like a slight but noticeable delay when issuing movement commands. Is it just me? Maybe it's just me. This little issue aside though, I really appreciate the way the game has had its tutorial section set up. Whilst the game does offer some tips, I was able to figure out where to go just by looking around, and this speaks to the developer's ability to create environments that both look like they belong. Hi, it's Editing Ronica. I just noticed this when I was looking through the footage for this part of the video,
video, and I'm gonna play this clip a few times because it's funny. Like, it looks really amusing to me, it makes me smile. Don't worry, we'll be talking about the animation shortly. I just wanted to put this bit in here. Thank you.
Yet clearly communicate how one is supposed to move around them. All of these walls that you climb up look like they belong in this environment. All of these cables and stuff that you grab hold of, they look like they're supposed to be here. This might sound like a very obvious way to design a game. It just isn't always obvious to the people making games. Our lovely life of working in a ship graveyard comes to an end when an Imperial Inquisitor shows up. Well, two actually. For those who don't know, they're Force wielders who hunt down former members of the Jedi Order that survived the Purge. We get found out, our mate gets murdered, not quite in that order, and we have to flee, which is where we're introduced to the combat. Again, kind of feels like there's the slightest delay, but I can compensate, and again, I'm not entirely sure if it's just me or not. But aside from that thing that may or may not be an issue, the game's combat is basically alright. You have your lightsaber, which you can use to cut down enemies and deflect blaster fire. If you time it just right and aim your camera towards the guy who just shot you, you can deflect the fire right back at them. Then, later on, you can use an array of force powers. You do get one early on that lets you slow enemies down for a short span, but then later on you get the usual force push and force pull. Since these are both such basic Jedi powers, you might be wondering why we didn't have access to them to begin with. Well, Cal's connection to the force was partially severed when he and his master were attacked by the clones, and part of the game is based around trying to get Cal his powers back. In fact, I quite like the segments where you get your powers back because you flash back to Cal when he was but a child, learning under his Jedi Master whose name I've already forgotten. The game is very story driven, which for a Star Wars game shouldn't be a surprise, and there are a lot of cutscenes interspersed throughout the levels. I am iffy to say the least about cutscenes in general, but like almost anything in games, I think as long as they're used well then there's not a problem. A well-placed cutscene can go a long way to help tell the story. Does Jedi Fallen Order use cutscenes well? I'd say yes. The story is quite well told and the performances are respectable. Characters didn't feel completely like they were made of wood, which makes me think someone kept George Lucas busy with a colouring book while the character bits were being done. Look, the dude created an interesting universe of adventure and peril, I'll give him that, but he cannot write or direct characters for shit. Or at least most of the time he can't. I'm mostly using the prequels as my evidence. The voice acting is pretty good. The dude who plays Saw Gerrera, this dude here, manages to sound convincingly like a desperate yet determined rebel. He knows that shit is bad, but he's not about to let it grind him down to nothing. And the Jedi Master who's with us, Seer, I think her name is Seer. I'm gonna be honest, I'm recording this without having listened to the name being pronounced recently. Probably wrong, doesn't matter. This person here sounds what I'd like to put as cautiously optimistic. Like, she's been beaten down and defeated a bunch of times now, but she can also see a light at the end of the tunnel and she's gonna keep clawing at it. The ship captain, he's fine. Not really anything of note there. The main boss, Darth Vader lady, well, she's not a Darth Vader lady, she's a bloody Inquisitor. I knew that. I don't know why I said Darth Vader lady. I guess she kind of looks like Darth Vader. She's fine. She's got a decent voice actor. That's all good. That's the point I was sort of trying to make. But all props go to whoever voiced BD1 and all his adorable little beeps. I like to picture there was someone in a recording booth doing the beeps. Seriously though, BD1 is like the second cutest thing I've ever seen. My Landshark Mango being the cutest thing. Thank you, the click. His name is also BD1. You know, BD1. Like BD1, get it? It's fucking adorable. By the way, I'm going to link to both the Click and JXC's channels in the description since I've mentioned them both here, and they're both good channels, definitely worth checking out. I like to have them on when I'm drawing. Anyway, on with the review.
Good, good. It seems as though you are taking well to Jedi Fallen Order.
I really am, yes. When it was first described to me as a Star Wars Souls-like, believe it or not, I was kinda turned off. I hadn't been so dry as when I tried watching fart porn at a public airport. Oh, what a Christmas that was. It's weird because, you know, I love Souls-likes, but then again, it was kind of the whole Star Wars part that left me feeling like I'd just been chemically castrated. So I didn't bother with it for ages. But obviously then I got into the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch and Rebels and a bunch of that stuff. I also saw it was like $8.99 on the store, so I figured it was finally worth a go, and I'm really glad I did. One of the things the game absolutely nails is interconnected level design. Seriously, these levels are immaculate. Pretty much every map you'll be in utilises all your forms of movement, your wall runs, your double jumps and all that stuff. There are plenty of checkpoints scattered around them, and there are plenty of shortcuts to find to make your treks easier in the future, because you will have to come back here. The backtracking can be a little bit annoying, but there are plenty of shortcuts as I just said, so it should be fine. I was kind of turned off by the whole travelling to different planets thing, not because travelling to different planets is unexciting, more because of the way we have to do it. We have to return to the spaceship, select a planet from the map, then we wait to be prompted to sit in our chair, and only then can we actually arrive at the planet. However, it does have that Star Wars pomp and circumstance with all the hyperspace travel, and sometimes there's a nice little cutscene there. It all enhances the experience, kind of makes me feel like we're watching a really good Star Wars movie. You know, like one of the 3 of them that exist. Then of course, once we actually get to the planet and get to set down, we get to go and explore again. If I was to make one criticism though, and it's less a criticism of this game on its own, and more one that applies to any game which strives to look as realistic as it can, it looks really weird when we clip into objects or suddenly warp to a position for an animation. That's relevant to both combat and the movement. Though luckily I didn't personally encounter that much of this, which is good. It's a few little kinks here and there, but it was worth mentioning as sometimes landing from falls just looks a bit weird, and Cal's walk/run animations in general are a little bit off. I don't know what it is, it just doesn't look right.
I feel a disturbance. As if a player has neglected to speak of the combat in this Star Wars game.
Okay, joke's over, take that shit off.
Ronica, I am your father!
Piss off.
Yep, gotcha.
The point is valid though, we need to discuss the combat, and yeah, it's okay. You press square to attack, L1 to block, and you can dodge with circle. Of course you have to press circle twice to do a proper dodge roll. Don't ask me why. At least those are the controls if you're playing on the PS5. If you're playing on a different console, then, I don't know, look up the translations, I'm too dumb to offer them here. An immediate criticism I can make of the combat is that, well, it just doesn't have that feel to it, you know? I mean, it's not bad at all, it's just kind of mediocre. Feels a bit odd that the combat of a Star Wars game isn't its strongest point, but oh well. We can improve our combat abilities by spending these skill points at bonfires. Sorry, not bonfires, meditation points. That's what I meant. You can have a rest at these to recover your HP and your healing bits and your force powers and whatnot, but doing so will also respawn the enemies, though I don't really get why in this sense. In the Dark Souls games, the enemies that we fight are all undead, so their respawning when you use checkpoints makes a level of sense. But what, did the stormtroopers just get back up and dust themselves off as if they were Looney Tunes characters taking a mallet to the face? Or did they just get replaced by some woefully disinterested commander?
What's that? Our entire force was slaughtered by some Jedi? Just send down some exact replacements. What? No, I don't want to put more thought into this. It's Margaret's birthday party and I want to get there before all the pieces of cake are gone, Greg. I know you're the one who eats the corner pieces, you fuck.
I mean, the actual reason, of course, is that this is a video game with Souls-like elements, and this is just what happens in this type of game. You know, it's not a bad mechanic, it just doesn't make a lot of sense in context. You know, I felt like I was a bit harsh to the combat a minute ago. There were moments where it was quite fun and exhilarating. Successfully deflecting blaster bolts makes me feel like a badass, and unlocking force powers lets you more effectively clear out the peons, whilst the tougher enemies in the game force you to be clever and learn how to engage them. While most of them can be beat by just blocking at the right time and reposing, some of them are particularly resistant to your melee attacks, and melee is pretty much all you've got. I do want to say now, though, that the larger enemies and the animals are just an absolute chore, and towards the end of the game, whenever I could manage to, I would just leg it past them. Unless I was actually forced into it, I'd just run away. It was easier. Fighting them just wasn't worth it half the time. And I didn't even get the upgrade to my lightsaber that increased the damage until the very end of the game, though at least it was there to help me with the final boss. Side note, that whole lightsaber upgrade thing is kind of on me. I didn't unlock the power until like the very end because I was kind of all over the place in terms of where I was speccing my points, because that's the sort of thing I do. On the subject of bosses, they're kind of a mixed bag. A few of them are just slightly different versions of standard enemies, but the proper bosses like the Ninth Sister and this dragon bat thing were quite fun and challenging, if a little bit cheap at moments. A lot of the story bosses won't just be a fight until you've turned their health bar inside out. Typically events occur once you drain enough of their health, which either end the fight there and then or progress it further, and you might think being interrupted by these cutscenes would be lethal to the pace and enjoyment, but I'd say you're wrong. That's not to say I don't think it could be a problem, I just think it was handled well enough in this game to not be an issue this time around. I don't think it's a thing that games should, really be doing a lot, but anyway. They managed to keep the tension of the scene going and effectively progress the story. It didn't take long for me to be sat leaning forwards engrossed by the cutscene because we were getting some of that Star Wars drama that I actually quite like. Now you might have noticed I'm swapping between a dual blade and a single bladed saber. This is because you get an upgrade about, I want to say halfway through the game-ish? I don't know, I wasn't really timing it. Your dual blade is more effective against groups of enemies and your single blade is more effective for one-on-one combat. I appreciate that as you explore you find stuff like this. You also find upgrades to BD1 and occasionally find things that make it easier for you to get around the map. You can also find things like custom pieces for your lightsabers. You can adjust how your lightsaber looks at the workbench in the spaceship, so it's quite nice to be able to find stuff. Plus paint jobs for Cal's poncho, BD1 and your spaceship. These last few things are just cosmetic, but I always liked finding them, so I guess I can't complain. It's not as if we don't find actual upgrades as we explore the levels, though a lot of the upgrades are for BD1. The lightsaber's double-bladed thing doesn't really come into it until, again, I think halfway through the game. Then later we can split the lightsaber into two for quick attacks, but again, this is even later in the game. There just aren't any parts to upgrade your lightsaber's, say, damage or ability to deflect or anything like that, which does feel like a bit of a missed opportunity. That's not to say you won't find anything else useful in the maps. You can see these echoes sometimes, which can increase your maximum force and health, which is always useful. So it's not as if we'll only find cosmetics whilst exploring. The story progresses well. I won't spoil anything, but I suppose you either already know what's happened, or you'll be able to hazard an accurate guess as to how things end, given that this takes place between episodes 3 and 4. I want to say quickly though that in one of my fights against the final boss woman, her saber forgot to return to her because I knocked her out of an animation and it was just sort of hovering there in midair and she was just playing make-believe like she had an invisible lightsaber. It amused me. Of course, that's not relevant to the actual story. I just thought it was funny and didn't know where else to put it.
And by the golden testicles of Hercules, I forgot to talk about the story throughout this whole thing, didn't I? I mean, I've made a mention of it, but I haven't really discussed the plot in detail. You know what, I'll just summarise it quickly because, again, I don't really want to spoil any of it because it's actually quite good and it's better experienced firsthand. Basically, we're on a quest to save the next generation of Jedi-sensitive kids, that's a weird way to say that, from becoming Sith people because the Sith are looking for them. We're looking for a holographic cube thing that's what Jedi store their data on and only Jedi can open it, and then we get it. I genuinely can't believe I wrote a whole script about a game and forgot to even talk about the freaking plot.
Let's quickly touch on the graphics again. Yeah, they're pretty good actually. As I said last week, if the graphics are doing their job, then it's fine, but in this case they are pretty good and definitely worth praising. Also, I don't feel like I praise graphics enough, so this is the moment where I praise graphics in a game. They're good. Sound design is also strong. The background music for fights and the sound effects for weapons, devices and areas are all well composed and I never noticed any issues. All in all, good stuff. Something that I didn't like was the non-blockable attacks enemies did. Not because you couldn't block them, I'm fine with there being attacks in a game that you just can't block and you have to dodge, but because the red hue that indicates they're about to do one of these attacks can sometimes appear ages before the attack is actually, done. And sometimes it appears only a split second before the attack is actually thrown out and you can't react to it in time. Although most of these attacks can be stopped or at least delayed with some force powers, so not the end of the world. Overall, viewer, I will gladly say that Jedi Fallen Order is a good game and worth checking out. I feel bad for Respawn as a games developer being stuck under the thumb of that shitbag EA. Perhaps one day they'll be free and just be allowed to create stuff without needing to please a parasitic publisher. So Jedi Fallen Order is a fun action-adventure game with some decently implemented Souls-like elements, though I've got to say how glad I am that they didn't bother with anything like durability or stamina. I mean, there is stamina, but you literally only use it to block attacks, so yeah, it doesn't matter. It's fine. It's a fun game and a nice addition to the Star Wars IP. As I said, I've been kind of into Star Wars media as of late. Is anyone else looking forward to Season 2 of The Bad Batch? I am. I can't wait. Should be fun.
You suck.